It's the IQ podcast. We're finally on episode 20. We made it.
Oh, man.
This is the end, right?
It only took us 20 weeks.
We got 20 episodes under our belt, and we're starving for topics, right?
Is that what we are?
What do we do next? What's the next podcast?
Yeah.
What was this podcast? We actually struggled a little bit trying to figure out a good topic for this week, and then I realized we haven't talked about game lock. So
No, we haven't.
Today, we're going to be talking. It's going to be a bit of a discussion about, if you're a new streamer, I want to talk kind of like, I'm going to do this one a little bit differently, right? I'm not going to give like a full summary of everything. I want to kind of, we each kind of have our own take, and I think there's a valid viewpoint on like every side for this topic. I think there's a good chance that we should give the benefit of the doubt to each perspective and maybe try to find the right middle ground on this. So let's just start with like, what is game lock? Pickles, I want to start with you. Give us your definition of what game lock or category lock is and what the opposite is of maybe being locked down. So
I think when you have game lock, whatever, it essentially just means that if you stream literally anything else, you're gonna have like no viewership for that. Like all you feel like you can stream is that game. Otherwise, you don't have a stream.
Right.
Essentially.
Okay. If somebody was brand new and they were coming to streaming and they said, I really want to grow my stream, but I don't want to be game locked. How would you respond to that?
Don't start with Dark Souls.
Actually, yes, that would also be my recommendation. Avoid Dark Souls and Darkest Dungeon, despite the fact that they are a treasure trove of content. It's very easy to fall into the Dark Souls hole, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
The dark hole? I don't know. It's easy
the Souls hole.
The Souls hole. It's very easy to get sucked into the Souls hole and just never make it out because the Souls boys are notorious for watching Souls and only Souls, and It's like you stray even a little bit, and it's like, nope, not watching this. Don't care. All I want is my Dark Souls fix. So,
Okay.
I would say I would say schedule, like, against your will if you have to, schedule different games to play, and like don't give into that temptation to like be like, oh well, I was having a really good run of this game, let's just play that again tonight, right? Like, unless you have it scheduled for more than one night a week, and then stick to it and like reinforce from the beginning the notion that you play more than just one type of game or just one game, even in general.
What's your take on this, Eat Your Meats? How do you feel about game lock in general? And
Yeah, so I kind of think of game lock as potentially just being a specialist, right? If you want to be a specialist, you really have to like what you're specializing in. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the thing. People talk about game lock potentially as it's like a terrible thing. And depending on the game you lock into, it could be. But for games that have a large following and have a large variety of Souls-like, for example, games, there's still opportunity to kind of subspecialize and move beyond that. And I think that if one of your goals is to have strong, steadier growth, finding a place in a game locked category is not a bad thing.
so this
I'm
is
not
like,
against people game locking.
yeah, this is like the opposite take almost. So instead of saying don't play Dark Souls, you're like, play Dark Souls.
Play Dark Souls. If you
so-
love Dark Souls and you want to be part of that group and you are good at it or have a fun take on it and can play it interestingly, do it.
Like,
I don't think our perspectives differ that much. It's just really like, for me, it's like that advice would be more oriented towards someone who doesn't like who sees the game lock coming ahead of time. And like,
Right.
obviously, like if you're already coming to us and going like, hey, I'm worried that I'll only be stuck playing this one game, then I'll
Right.
tell you like, hey, don't play Dark Souls. But hey, if you wanna be the next big Souls guy, I'm behind you 100%. I'll watch because I love Dark Souls.
This is
like
where
I'll be there.
Yeah, I will be there, frankly, because Soulsborne Challenge runs are great. I love them. So I'm probably a little biased from that perspective, but
What-
absolutely, you have
What's
to
that?
go
The
into.
sixth time I played Bloodborne today? Yeah, sure. Sign me up.
I think this
Oh,
is
look, another person.
go ahead,
I
Pickles.
wasn't saying like don't play
Right.
Dark Souls. I'm just saying like I just use that as an example of like games that are easy to get locked into.
Right.
Because the thing that does happen with games that people get locked into is that they play the game for the first time or whatever, then they start doing a challenge run, and then they start trying to figure out more interesting ways to try and do more challenge runs, and then you just it kind of becomes redundant, and that's
Yeah.
not something that like I personally am into. And there are people who do perfectly fine doing that kind of thing.
Right.
But like just for me, like when I started streaming, I always had 2 games in rotation because I just didn't want to get bored, honestly, doing the same game constantly.
So my perspective on this is like, usually when somebody says, "Hey, I don't want to get locked into one game. I don't want to be a one game streamer," I usually have to like kind of start the conversation from a different perspective first, because I think the question actually needs to be something like, do you want to be successful? And how quickly do you want to be successful as a streamer? Because I think that there's somewhat of a balance with trade-offs here. Because, yeah, you can make a successful stream, variety streaming, but that timeline is so much longer without, like, just factoring in any sort of luck. You're going to take a very, very long time to grow your stream with variety. So the trade-off here is like, oh, I don't get locked down to one game, but I also don't create a community very quickly. I don't create a stream viewership base very quickly. So sometimes, and I think this is what Eat Your Meats was kind of saying, like you if you can play one game, then the trade-off there is you don't get to play a bunch of other games, but you can make a community much faster, and you can meet more people, and it's much easier for people to remember you because you do the same thing every time you're live. It's not a surprise that you're playing Mario Kart and you were playing Bloodborne last week, and you're not like that. Being all over the place has like this direct trade-off. And so usually what I try to tell people when they say, I don't want to be game locked, I say, well, like, first of all, you have to figure out the trade-offs here. Like, is it really that important to not be locked down into a game? Because I think long-term, you can have a plan to move out and away from one game that's giving you success. And I think we all know Jared kind of did this, right? He had a good strategy for using a single game category to grow his stream, the best Jared. And he used other games here and there as smartly as he could. He would just like stream. If a game wasn't working, if people weren't showing up for it, he just would stop playing it and go back to Darkest Dungeon, right? So I think there's value and balance here. I don't think you have to be game locked and just stream one game, only ever just that one game to have success. I think it can be like a good thing for you to like have that as like a cornerstone of your stream, like a good expectation of something you do regularly, and then build your community and your stream viewership with that one source, and sneak in variety like once a week, right? So that people
Variety
get used to you, and just expect that your viewership is going to be half or less when you do the other thing. You know, like, how long did it take Jared to make community review as large, or even coming to like 70% of his viewership on a Darkest Dungeon stream? And even still today, it's not 100%. If you move around as a streamer, you have to be willing. This is where the trade-offs come in. Mm-hmm. And I think it'd be a good idea for new streamers to not be afraid of game lock, because I don't think it exists entirely. I think it's like kind of like something that you it's not something you should be afraid of. It should be something you should be aware of, and you should craft your content and your decisions around this and manage your expectations, right?
Yeah, I think
What?
managing expectations is very important when it comes to this kind of thing because I agree. I don't think that anyone is ever like truly game locked because if you stream the same game like every time you stream for 2 years or whatever, there are going to be some people who will follow you out if you just try something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just need to know that when you try something else, the numbers are going to dip by a lot, right? But
A
if you
lot.
know
It won't
that,
be
you can
zero,
plan
though.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to be zero. So you can plan for that kind of thing. So
Right.
Yeah,
The,
then
the issue is with most people is, or at least in my experience, is the people who complain about game lock, is like you said, they didn't have a plan for, they didn't mentally prepare themselves right for what happens when you try to move out of the game, because like as we established, right, you move out of the game, that there's a good chance, half, 75% maybe even of your viewership just won't. I mean, yeah, they'll show up maybe for like an hour and then they'll get bored and go watch the game that they come to you for normally. So
Yeah.
the
there's
problem is if you're aware of that though, then you're not phased when you go from 150 people watching you play Bloodborne to 50 or something like that.
Intention plays a big role in this. So chat's bringing up some good questions. I want to hit first. I want to hit the fatigue. This is like something that's obvious in this situation, right? Viewer fatigue. Viewers get bored of watching you do the same thing over and over again, and you get bored of doing the same thing over and over again. Now, there are these two things. They don't happen until they happen. So I feel like you shouldn't try to avoid these two things until they start happening. Then you need to make changes when they happen. Because if you make changes preemptively, you could be like killing some of your momentum. Maybe you're worried that you're going to get bored of a game. Play it until you do get bored, first of all. See how long that actually takes. Trying to avoid it can actually kill your viewership and kill your momentum because you're afraid of something. Don't make decisions in fear. I would be more reactive than proactive in some of these cases, because I've seen variety streamers jump around so much because they're afraid they're going to get bored, and then their stream never grows, and then they're unhappy because their stream isn't growing. So like, okay, so you were unhappy. Were you going to? So now you just have being unhappy because you're playing the same game over and over again, and being unhappy because no one is watching. Which one is more important to you? Do you want viewers, or do you want to enjoy what you're doing? And the other way to kind of think about this is be a streamer first. Like, don't put your game and your experience of playing a video game above being a good streamer. Be a streamer first. Enjoy streaming. You can do the same thing over and over and over again with the right company, with the right people. It is so easy to just do the same thing over and over and over again, because the thing is not the priority. It's the atmosphere. It's the stream. It's the community. It shouldn't, like, you shouldn't worry about it. Right. That you're trying to avoid something that's really not that important. Like, if your stream is really important and the people are enjoying being there, that should be priority. That should be priority number one. Enjoy being a streamer. If you can enjoy just being a streamer, you could play the same thing or do the same thing. That's like a rung down. You don't have to worry about it as much. So I think there's a lot to be said for prioritizing what you want out of the stream. If you're going to get upset that people aren't watching because you're moving around so much, you're trading viewers for not being bored, and you're aiming not being bored towards like how you feel about a video game. It's kind of the same thing where, like, if I tell somebody maybe they should go do thing on stream and they're like, well, I don't think I would enjoy playing that game, and I go, but it would be an enjoyable stream, right? Like, go make the enjoyable stream. Stop worrying. You're almost making your emotions and yourself the priority with your experience with the thing. It's like, if streamers did this, they would never do a hot food challenge. They would never wear a weird costume. They'd never make themselves uncomfortable on stream ever. A lot of what streamers do is make themselves embarrassed and uncomfortable.
Because people love it.
Right?
Yeah, totally. There's a couple things that I think chat mentioned too, and then I wanted to mention as well. So we're talking about this focused on games, but category, like non-game categories, you can absolutely lock into as well. Right? So if you are kind of trying to establish your brand, you can totally think of yourself as, well, I want to be a cooking streamer, right? Or I want to be an ASMR streamer, or I want to be an art streamer, right? And so the same kind of thing happens there too. So it's not just games. We have to think about it from the whole streaming community. Do you want to be a reaction streamer? Because if you get known for watching YouTube videos and reacting to them on stream, people may not be interested in watching you come play games, right? So never. So certainly think about, what kind of streamer you want to be, right? And if the first thing that comes into mind is I want to be XYZ type streamer, that's great. When it comes to like true variety, and this speaks to I think what Gasfrog was mentioning too, if you are pure variety, I think that can cause what I refer to as viewer whiplash, where it's so true. Where it's like, oh, this person's playing like basically a guided story this day, and then they're playing Mario Kart the very next day, and then they're playing Tomb Raider the day after, and then they're playing Slay the Spire the day after that, and you're like, I don't know what's going on, and they never finish a game, and it's just they're all over the place in their choices. I think that is even more problematic, right? So
like, if you're playing Bloodborne one day and the next day you're playing Spiritfarer, I'm gonna cry because it's Spiritfarer, but like that's an emotional like 180 that
yeah, exactly. So I think a healthy balance, if you're someone who's like, well, I don't really want to game lock, but I want to have I want to, you need to think about, like, if someone describes you, like you raid them, they describe you, how are they going to describe you as a streamer, right? They may describe your personality, and that's great if that's one of the first things that comes up. But I think a lot of people will describe the type of streamer that you are, right? So I think if there's a category or a group of games that you spend most of your time with focus on, that's a really great way, right? So like how Gasfrog mentioned, like if someone likes to do a lot of shooter games, or if you focus more on roguelites or JRPGs, that can be a way to keep out of game lock, but still have a focus so that, people who like Final Fantasy VII tend to like Chrono Trigger, right? Or they tend to like Monster Hunter World because they're similar types of games and we have certain tastes. So that's a way to still be variety, but with a focus. And I think a lot of people sort of fall into that anyways, but that streamer whiplash that sometimes we do.
Viewer whiplash.
There's I guess
streamer too.
Streamer whiplash makes it really hard to grow a community, I think.
Oh, big time.
But also, like we've established, like if you know yourself enough, right? What does Sun Tzu say? Know yourself, know your enemy, and you'll never lose. But if you don't know either, you'll lose every time. If you know that you could play Bloodborne literally every day for the rest of your life, right? If you know that you won't get bored doing that, there's nothing wrong with jumping in there with both feet, head first, full chest, whatever. Go for it. If that's what makes you happy, and you know that you can consistently provide a entertaining experience because you yourself are entertained by playing one game or one type of game over and over, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, it's like you said, you got to temper that expectation of, like, if you do ever get to the point where you're like, gee, I wish I could play anything else.
And there's actually a benefit towards more than just doing one thing, because what you can do, right? So like, let's take Northern X Rush, right? You guys are all aware of Northern X Rush, right? Obviously, he's one of my clients. So he's a good example of somebody who, it's not just about the game. Like his stream, what he does, he plays, For Honor, a lot of For Honor. But the reason his stream is growing and doing so well isn't just because he's streaming one game. That helps. And it isn't just because he's hanging out with the For Honor community and growing with those viewers. That helps. But he has established himself in a position of leadership towards the community by setting up events that people can take part in, tournaments that he puts on, and he with a little prize, and these series of tournaments that people can sign up for, and people love that stuff. This is where you can have the strength of being game locked a little bit, at least, where maybe what you need to do is, if playing the same game over and over again is a boring concept to you, maybe you need to move into a position where your stream has a greater value than I play game over and over and over and over again. Maybe it's I have tournaments for game. I become somebody who has an established thing in that space that nobody else is providing, or people are providing, but maybe you could do it better. Maybe you run the best tournaments in the space. Maybe you have the best prizes in the space. Maybe it's the more fun. Maybe you've got the best, shout casting or whatever it is. Like anything you can do in a space on Twitch allows you to kind of establish yourself as more than just I'm playing a game is good. It's really hard to do that with variety. It's almost impossible to do that with variety. And so sometimes being like a single game streamer or type of game streamer can actually help you, because you get to do something that's like bigger with your stream than just streaming a game.
I find that when I play newer games to myself, I'm spending a lot more time focusing on the game and trying to learn the game, right? And that can be an interesting process for people to watch. But when I go back to games that I'm a bit more comfortable with, I can switch to educating people about the game, or just switch to, shooting the breeze, right? And if you slip into a more comfortable game that people enjoy watching, it can allow you a little bit more time to not be so incredibly focused on what's going on in the game. So I think like first playthroughs have their own unique value, but once you're getting into repeat playthroughs, making sure that it's a game that you're comfortable and enjoy, so that you can switch to more of the personality side of things, right? Yeah. I think that that's a good way of approaching it if you are going to prolong your exposure to a game beyond a first playthrough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think if you are shooting for the variety, streamer niche, as it were, it also won't, it won't hurt you to have something you do. It doesn't have to be all the time, but once a week. Mm-hmm. Just have something that you do once a week that you will always do, or that you do most every week, right? Something that just like everyone, for example, like when we were talking about Jared has community review, right? Like that's a thing that everyone knows, like, hey, every time, on an X day this week, Jared's going to be doing this. And it's vastly different from what he normally does, but he's established it because he's done it every week. Mm-hmm. He's put that time in, right? When there was, 2 people watching it or whatever, whatever, 10 people watching it. And then next week there was 12 people watching it. And the next week there was 14 people watching it. Yeah. You build up that thing that you do every week. You could then freely use the rest of your week as just a variety bonanza, because you always got that one thing to fall back onto. And it could be, Darkest Dungeon is a good one. Slay the Spire is a good one. Meats can attest to this. Slay the Spire is great, right? Just as a game, but it's also great as a viewer game, because it's a little bit different every time. Like, it's not, you're not playing the exact same thing over and over. And then there's like those add-ons as well that like add people into the game, right? Like when they chat and it appears on screen and stuff.
Yeah. Like
there's ways to like involve people. Like Darkest Dungeon, you can rename characters after, people spend points or something, right? Like there's ways to involve your audience in those games.
Yeah.
Or if you're playing games that have co-op, carefully offer, co-op in certain situations can be something. Twitch integration, all of these things are good things to consider too. If you need ways to engage your community into a game that maybe you're playing a lot of, or struggling to pull your focus from.
That's the best way to involve your community. I think one of the riskiest and maybe the worst ways to involve your community is to take votes on what to do next.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay, why?
Unless it's for a meme, right? I think that like meme games are
an
sometimes
hour
fun.
1 hour.
Yeah. Exactly. But I feel like viewers oftentimes think that they know what game's going to do well for you, and they're usually wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're usually wrong. And it's not because they have poor intentions. It's just their perspective is more about like, well, I love this obscure game. And you go into the category and there's like 4 people watching that game.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't think I'm going to play that game. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Well, I think letting chat vote what you're gonna play next kind of just takes it off of you, and I think you need that responsibility and that agency as the one streaming to just like maintain that kind of control.
I agree.
Yeah, and like if it fails, then you blame chat, right?
And the other problem is, you've got maybe 30 people voting, and 15 people wanted X, but 8 people wanted Y, and 7 people wanted Z. Those other 15 people are going to be really salty about the fact that the other 15 people won despite what they wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
So,
What happens too is like you get these big expansive games. I think Witcher's a really good example of this, where people are like, oh, Witcher's so great, you should play The Witcher. And every single time I see a streamer start to play The Witcher, like the first 2 streams are really popular, and then people just get bored and they stop showing up.
because
Yeah.
people
But
forget that The Witcher is like
A slog. It's a
Super
delightful
long.
slog.
That's putting it charitably.
Yeah.
It's a long game. That's a game you take on with the expectation that you will be there for a while, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Personally, myself, The Witcher 3 took me over a year.
Yeah.
Like, of almost playing it at least once a week.
I
like,
played
it
it
took a
during
while.
maternity leave, and I finished it in like 4 months, maybe.
So we're not
But,
trying to
yeah.
say don't involve chat. Definitely, you
Yeah.
want to get feedback and you want people's opinions on things, and let people tell you their favorite games and stuff. It's when you start going, I don't know what I'm gonna do today. I don't know what the stream is gonna be. Hold on, chat. Let's do a straw poll and figure out. Does anybody have any games they want me to play? And then that whole thing. That's a mess. And letting your community control like the next piece of content on your stream is it comes off as kind of weak, right? Like you don't know how to be a streamer. You don't.
I will say though that there is a way to make that a little more palatable, and that's to have a prepared set of things. So instead of letting chat run wild, be like, "Hey, what do you think we should do?" Like, "Hey, we got these 3 things. Which of these things sound
It could
cool to
probably
you
be
guys?"
done in a way that works all right.
in a constructive
Yeah.
way rather than in a chaotic way.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of streamers that do these, like, this is the game the community picked for the week. And then the next week they're playing the next game the community picked for the week. And I don't see those streams growing very much, even though they're decent
Yeah.
streamers.
Like, I think it's okay to do sometimes. We'll make it like a special event, like
It's
a
an
community
incentive,
night or something like that.
Or a
Like, there's
Halloween
reason-
game.
Yeah, Halloween games. Like let chat choose the scary games you're gonna play for Halloween or something like that, because the focus isn't gonna be so much the game as the experience of the scares, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Because when you give up that kind of control over your thing, you kind of give up control of everything else in a sense. Like, people, if there's a line that people will cross, and if you let them cross it, like a lot of other things become open for input that probably shouldn't be. But
And then also, if you don't like the game they picked, right? Oh boy, then you're in trouble, right? 'Cause
Then they're gonna be hurt.
yeah, I'm gonna
Then
hurt
there's
some
gonna be
feelings.
some feelings bruised.
I like the idea of like the phrase "I know why the caged bird sings" or whatever. Like, there's a controlled freedom that I think that you can allow for the community watching your stuff. Like, so for example, we do the community comic over on my channel every month, and I let chat vote on how the next chapter starts, and they have a choice between 3 options typically, but those are the 3 options I gave them, right?
Right,
So
right.
no matter
Right.
no matter what they choose, it's something I knew I could do
That's
something
the
with.
structured part of it rather than the chaos
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah, it's like, I've got these 3 things. Which one appeals to you?
Yeah, so instead of letting them just be like, okay, next chapter, I want there to be a giant explosion that destroys everything, and then a portal opens up and some weird stuff like that. Like, no, giving them a sense of agency with what's going to happen, but it's still controlled within my structure that I gave to them. And I think that can and should probably be applied to other aspects of streaming.
Yeah.
But it'll be different ways to let people.
And for certain games like Dark Souls, even Darkest Dungeon, Slay the Spire, you can also let chat kind of you can give them the choices like, oh, what build are we going to use this run? If you're playing Slay the Spire, like, oh, which character are we going to do this run, right? Like there's a little bit of choice you can give them within a game, so you're still controlling what's on screen, you're still controlling what the tone of the stream is, but you're still offering chat that little bit of freedom, right?
Yeah, and
Just
it allows
a
you
little
to
toe dip, a little taste
yeah.
of choice.
Freedom.
Yeah.
It builds bonding moments.
Yeah, there's a lot that kind of gets tied up with, what you're streaming and how often you stream it. That's kind of really what the discussion should be about. And I think one of the biggest mistakes smaller streamers make is they make decisions based on fear. They're afraid of game lock. They're afraid of being bored. They're afraid of success, whatever it is. You don't make decisions based on fear. Make decisions based on what will work for you. And think deeply about what that means. Maybe you can grow a community in one game that you really like, and you can meet a bunch of people. In fact, if you're a brand new streamer, that's probably the best way to do anything. Just don't shut up about the fact that you want to play other things. Don't make it a surprise, right? So if I was telling somebody brand new and they were like, what do? I want to grow. I want to have a stream. I want to be successful. I want to grow my stream. I'd be like, find a home where you can go and meet people and make a strategy for networking with other streamers in that category. Get to know everybody in that category, small and big. Hang out, watch their streams, raid those people, hang out in their streams. Just focus there. Don't spread yourself too thin early on. Just focus. And then see what you could maybe do in that community that would be interesting for viewers to come in and have a good time with. But don't shut up about the fact that you want to do other things, right? And maybe 4 weeks into your stream, when you've started to grow, you've got, X amount of follows now, and you've got Y amount of viewers, and people are hanging out. Maybe you test the waters with a variety day, and you use that one day to go play retro games or go play Bloodborne or whatever other game you're not, but try not to step too far away from your current community and what they like watching. If you're streaming Mario Kart, maybe Splatoon would be a good idea, but you don't want to go from Mario Kart probably to Witcher. Like this is
You never want to go to Witcher. Let's be honest. You just don't.
Until they give us a Bloodborne cart, like it will.
Yeah, that's a good crossover right there.
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to get at is you can have we're trying to get at the idea of having an anchor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like
an anchor game or an anchor activity.
Yeah.
Because some people will assume, again, Jared, for example, they'll assume he's a Darkest Dungeon streamer. But he doesn't play Darkest Dungeon all the time.
No,
right?
he doesn't. Yeah.
But he'll always swing back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think just you can have that's his home, right? And he built his house there. He built his community there. Kind of grew it in that area. But he has never not talked about okay, we're going to try this over here. We're going to do this over here. And he plays more different things than he does Darkest Dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll always swing back to it and be a part of that community.
And also the other thing that kind of goes unsaid a lot of the time by especially if you're new, if you think, right, if you think that if you're constantly afraid of I'm going to get bored of this, and you never finish games because you can't sit through an entire game, and you just always want to play something different all the time, then maybe streaming video games isn't what you're actually supposed to be doing, right? Maybe you should be streaming other things, right? Something that can hold your attention for a little bit longer than video games, right? There's no shame in streaming other things. Like Twitch has come a long way. It's not just about video games anymore.
Not at all.
But if you know yourself that that you can't focus on a game for more than 2 streams, then maybe video games isn't the answer. Maybe that's not who you are at heart, right? So figuring out what you can stream, how long you can stream it, how long it can hold your attention. Those are all things that help you avoid being stuck on either side of the game lock fence, right? You're either stuck inside a single game or you're stuck outside and you have no idea how to get in, right? Knowing yourself helps you figure out what steps to take next to either find an anchor or to break free if you are anchored already, right?
Yes, we are just full of metaphors and quotes tonight.
Yeah, we are.
Anchors. Fear is the mind killer.
Fear is the mind
so
killer.
So much
yeah.
going on with that, and
the
I
spice
think,
must flow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I do think, if your goals are in line, don't be afraid of game lock. I think that's the biggest thing. Is people talk about it as this terrible thing, and it's something. I feel like it's easier. It's faster, honestly, if you get really well known in a particular gamer category. I think personally, I'm more in favor of that than huge variety and growing from that perspective. I think it's easier to recover from moving out of a game lock than it is to moving into success from over variety.
Too much variability is also bad.
100% agree.
So if I'm going to pick, I'm going to say do something you love and do it for as long as you feel like you're still being entertaining, and just don't worry about the game lock.
Agree.
To speak to what Sonny was saying, just don't worry about. I am pro game locking. If success and being a specialist is something that you feel you can do, go ahead, lock in that game.
Success feels really good.
Yeah, but it's also scary to lose it.
That's true.
And
that's
that's
true.
something you have to realize.
That's true.
Look at somebody like Goes on Ghost. Goes on Ghost plays literally nothing but Bloodborne.
I don't think she's ever played not Bloodborne.
Exactly.
And she's great at it.
And she's great at it.
Yeah.
And she has a sizable, community based solely around Bloodborne challenge runs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's finding success in the one thing that you really love and the one thing you're really good at.
Yeah. I think part of the harm comes when you get bored with the game, then it shows to the people that are watching that you don't really want to do it and you're kind of just going through the motions. I think
it's really difficult to hide boredom.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's I don't know how to fix that one, cuz that's
become a good actor. I mean, this is a job. No, I'm not even
You're
kidding.
not wrong. Yeah.
If you're treating this like a job, and I'm a little saucy today, not saucy, but just mentally saucy. But this is if you're treating it like a job and you're considering it from a success perspective, your job's going to suck sometimes, right? Sometimes we get bored of our jobs. We can make ways to make it more interesting, but this is an entertainment job. And guess what? Plenty of people. Do you know how often The Who has to sing Baba O'Reilly and they hate it?
Yeah.
They hate it.
That's what
but
the job is.
But they do it and they're entertaining because that's what the people want.
Yeah,
right? I actually went to a Who concert and on stage they literally said, "We don't like this song, but we know you like it, so we're going to play it as best we can for you." And they did, and it was awesome. Right? And you have to realize that is part of the price that you pay potentially, is you're not always going to love what you're doing if this is your full-time job and you've specialized and that's where you found your success. You're a specialist.
Yep.
Sometimes it's going to suck.
If
you have to find a way to be entertained by it.
Yep.
If you're a musician, you're also going to have to put up with a random Yahoo yelling Freebird, which the Twitch equivalent is the random Yahoo telling you to play Dark Souls. Right. Dark Souls is the Freebird of Twitch.
Right. It's basically though, it's you found your song, right? You found the song that's a hit and you play it.
Play the song.
Play the song. Play Wonderwall. Play Freebird.
Anyways,
Sorry.
Dark Souls.
Yeah. That's what people want. Yeah.
Be happy that you found the success.
This is where I think
find a way to get value out of it.
I think a lot of streamers get confused about what streaming is early on, and they're like, "Oh, streaming means I get to play my favorite things and do my favorite things, and people just get to watch that." But
Oh.
really, all the top streamers are entertainers, and they make decisions based upon the meta. They don't the way their streams run is what works. They do what is working. They're not doing that stuff because they want to. They're doing it because it works.
Right.
And that's
you could be a casual gamer or you can min-max, right?
yeah.
Just if you're min-maxing, that's just the way it goes.
And I think a lot of us in IQ especially have we preached this for a while. I know Jared has as well. It's like, although Jared says it a little more softly than I do, I tell people bluntly, like, listen, if you're looking for, if your goal for your stream is that it's your job, right? It's your, if it's the thing that's supporting you, right? And you have to, you prioritize growth and financial success more than anything else. You have to treat it like a job. You have to sometimes play and stream and do things that you wouldn't necessarily want to do at that moment, but you have to do it because it's the smart decision to do. And so, yeah, every now and then you can blow off and say like, oh, whatever, I'll just play whatever game. But like, if it's your job, if you depend on it to survive, then you have to be receptive to what's going on, right? You have to guide your stream in a way where you know it's going to get the views, it's going to get the clicks, it's going to get the sponsorships, whatever it be. And yeah, sometimes that means locking yourself into a game either from the beginning, or locking yourself into a game for an extended period of time. And this is like, for example, The Witcher, right? When you sit down to play The Witcher, you have there's an expectation that this is going to take you a while, and you might be in this category for a while, and you might start playing other games that are similar to The Witcher, and you're going to be stuck in that sort of RPG category for a while. But to Sonny's point, there's always, I think, a way to crawl out of game lock. Crawl is not even the right word. There's a way to strut out of game lock,
Strategize,
yeah, and walk away and still be better off for it. It's just you have to plan ahead of time.
Yeah, you want to have a good plan to move out. You don't want to just wait until you get to one day where you're like, I can't play this anymore, I'm done. And then your viewership gets cut in half and nobody's watching your stream anymore. You really need a good strategy. You need to preach that you're going to do something else. You got to slowly try to pull as many people out to the new thing with you. And you want to have a good strategy for this. Long-term strategy is really the best way to go. Building it into your current stream content is a good way to go. But if you're just starting out your stream, and I don't care how long you've been streaming, if you're at like 10 or less viewers, this advice is for you. It doesn't matter if it's been 5 years that you've been streaming. What you need to do is figure out a way to meet new people and get in front of new people, and that should be your priority. And it helps to have consistency, schedule, and content. That should be your priority. And then once you've built yourself up to double the viewership, maybe 20 viewers, you can start to strategize on how to move those 20 viewers around and see who's going to follow you to the next game, and how much it hurts to play something else, and how maybe you don't do it for that long, and you just got to kind of test things and play with it a little bit. But
yeah. To your point, and I think this is important, I would argue that you can't even categorize yourself as a game lock until you at least have 30 viewers. Like, there's not enough people. It's not even statistically significant, right? Until you have enough of the people. You haven't even game found, right? Let alone game. No, I mean, it's the truth, right? You can't game lock with 5 or 10 people because that's not enough people to even pull any data from.
You're still out there on a rickety pirate ship with a map.
Right. I feel like it's game lost. Right. You need to change your game.
Lost.
I think a lot of people that are at like 10, 15 people get really nervous about shaking things up because they don't want to lose those 10, 15 people because they work so hard to try to reach that point. But like we said on the last podcast, like, you have the most freedom at lower numbers to do whatever you want. So you're not game locked sub 30. You can do pretty much whatever you want.
And that goes also back to, what we were talking about in previous episodes is like, a community is this dynamic thing that grows and changes. So you can't expect those 15 people when you first started streaming to be with you 3-4 years down the line. That's impossible. Like, that's statistically, it's not going to happen, right? So you meet new people and you branch out because you want to get more eyes on you, right? And that's the goal, right? If you're aiming to be successful in that sense, eyes on you is what you want. Like that's the baseline. Because
Yeah.
like if you don't plan ahead and you end up in the spot where you're like bored and burnt out and you inevitably go on hiatus, as so many streamers do, you're literally, if you're on hiatus, no one's watching you. You're not growing if you're not streaming.
True.
Right? So you have to take corrective measures before you get to that point.
Yeah. And it's important to ask yourself, what do you want? Do you want to just play games and just casually stream? Do you want to be a full-time streamer, content creator? Then you need to make the decisions to make that happen. And it's really all about priorities here. If your priority is just to play whatever game you want, then don't worry about growth. If your priorities are to grow, then make different decisions.
I've said this before. Like the most useful thing anyone has ever said to me when I first started out. Somebody asked. It was actually Timberwolf. I'm going to drop his name because I don't care. Timberwolf asked me in a DM. He didn't call me out in public, but he came to me privately and he asked me, "What is it that you want out of this? Do you want this to be a financial endeavor, or do you want this to be a hobby endeavor? Right? Like, what is it that you are looking for this stream to do?" And once you have that answer. And again, I will say, like, you don't even have to be honest with anybody else who asks you the question. Be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Once you know the answer to that question, everything else you can start building around that. Because that's the core, right? Because if you don't have a solid foundation, then all you have is a rickety house that's going to fall down
Yep.
in a storm, right? So
More metaphors, guys.
know that first. I am full of puns and sayings
You
and
were
things
like
tonight.
sensei tonight with the
And
metaphors.
I'm
I love
shooting the
it.
ball, yeah.
Yeah, it's really about game lock should be not a fear, but a question. It should prompt you to ask the right questions about what your goals are, and how you're going to meet them, and don't make decisions based on fear. Seriously, like I've seen too many streamers get in their own way of success because they're afraid of being locked into one game. And honestly, game lock, it's a symptom of you not figuring out how to like grow your community in a dynamic enough way to stretch your legs in other game categories. Maybe all you did for 5 years is play one game and that was it. And now what you really have is 5 years of you're paying the price of not like figuring out a good way to transition and pull people into other communities and figure out how to grow your stream outside of that game. You really need to set yourself up for the future and what you want to be. So, but because I think going into a single game and figuring out how not to be bored, how to offer extra things to that community can be really helpful. Because you can meet a ton of people if you just go play the same game over and over and over and over again. And there's some weird things with Twitch. Sometimes, like if you're streaming
Really?
if you're streaming Mario Kart 8 and you're in the Mario Kart 8 whatever deluxe category and you have 3 or 4 viewers and then you just out of curiosity maybe slip into the Mario Kart 8 non-deluxe category and see what happens. And then now you have 12 viewers for some reason. This kind of stuff happens. Twitch,
Yeah.
unfortunately, is a mess. Okay?
And frankly, give it more than one night too. I think that's
Yeah.
like I can
Yeah.
play the same game on 3 different nights and have a 20 viewer difference with no raids. Right? Like I might have 30 viewers one night and 50 viewers another night. And it's like I was playing the exact same game at the exact same time. It just happened to be a different day. It's just based on magical factors.
Yeah.
Days
Who
of the
knows,
week
right?
are important. You'd be surprised who shows up on a Wednesday that never shows up on a Friday, and vice versa.
Well, my Saturdays are really good because apparently a lot of people that I overlap in community, a lot of those streamers take Saturdays off. So people come to see me on Saturdays. Right. So there's definitely days that are going to be stronger in general. And maybe that's a day to try a new game, or maybe that's a day to not try a new game. It's depending on the type of communities that you're working
Absolutely. If you are like trying to focus on a game, if you are trying to game lock yourself, as it were, knowing what time the bigger streamers let out, as it were, when school lets out, knowing when that. Listen, like it sounds kind of cheesy when you talk about it clinically in that way, but like knowing when to stream to basically pick up everybody who's letting out. Like can be really helpful.
Yeah,
Like,
if you want to be the after party, you get all those like drunk people that just want to find somewhere to sit down and be entertained. Totally, right? That's absolutely a thing for sure. I'm okay.
And
with
we've openly joked about
second
my stream being like at one point was openly joked about being Jared's waiting room. Like there's no shame in playing before the big streamers get on either, right? Knowing when the bigger streamers stream is helpful if you want to leech some views.
Twitch's Waffle House, yeah. So we're all happy with that. That's okay.
But
just not the Chuck E. Cheese.
You were about to say something.
Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I forgot.
Oh, it's okay.
Well, okay. Well, recently. Or at the start of the year, actually, we decided we're gonna cut our scheduled Thursday streams because they're our lowest performing viewership wise streams. So, and part of that is because most of the people that are in the shared community, a lot of them do stream on Thursday, and so everybody kind of just gets spread out more. But we cut that out, and like I stream 2 streams on Mondays and Tuesdays, and it's like a noon stream and an evening stream, and different people tend to show up because some people like during the noon streams they're at work, and then they actually get to come and hang out during the evening streams. So you just got to kind of feel it out.
Yeah, and you're going to get different populations. Yeah, for sure. Like if you're playing a game that's more popular with like the European crowd, you probably want to play it earlier in the day, right?
Yep.
Versus if it's popular for primetime Americans, playing it later in the day would be smarter for sure. But don't be afraid of game lock. That's the only thing I want to say.
I agree.
Even just difference between East Coast and West Coast. That's a 3-hour differential, and that could be big. That can be big.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say that like streaming late at night is not the worst thing you could do because a lot of people will let out their streams and you're like the only person on.
True.
They'll funnel their raids to you. You get a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm definitely subject to a lot of like witching hour raids because I tend to, especially on Friday and Saturday nights, I'm streaming till like midnight, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard. So around 11:30, I start getting to the dumps. The people who finishing up, sending their people off, right? So that totally happens. And if you're part of a category, a lot of times what people will do if they're streaming a game, they're going to look, number one, potentially in the same category, number two, in people that they recognize, right? And that's why game lock can be good if you network well too, because they're going to say, who else is streaming Dark Souls 3? Oh, this person's streaming Dark Souls 3 and they're doing a challenge run and I know this person. We're going to send you guys there because I already know that the people who are watching me probably like Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And if you've been rated,
that totally works.
This like people don't always follow you when you get rated, right? But they may see you in the category again later and be like, "Oh, yeah. Well, my favorite streamer's not on, but they're on. I've been there before. I'll click on that." Like,
it's 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm desperate for a raid. What's that? Kuma's playing Slay the Spire. Don't mind if I do.
Yeah.
I also think that like game lock isn't that scary, especially if you approach streaming as essentially just chatting with a game in the background. Like that's always kind of like, unless the game itself is particularly engaging. Like we've been playing Inscription, which draws a lot of my attention towards the game and what's happening in the game. But generally, I like to think that whatever we're playing, it's mostly just chatting, and there's a game that's kind of uniting us behind me,
Despite what you think, like a lot of people come for you and not the game. Like Twitch likes to pretend that it's all about the games, but it's not. It's about the people.
Yeah, that was kind of my first point was like, be a streamer first. Like, having a good stream your priority more so than having a good time playing a game. A lot of streamers will make their decisions on what their stream is supposed to be based upon how they feel about a thing that they'll do on stream. And I feel like that's like you've got your priorities a little bit upside down. It's like, maybe you should play a game because it would be enjoyable for people to watch you play that game, not because you're excited to play it or not. Like reserve your judgment on the thing and make the decision based upon whether or not it's a good thing to stream first. Maybe have a good stream first. If you put all of your priorities in that kind of category where you want a good stream, then you make completely different decisions. You're not over there thinking about, I don't think I'm going to play. This is also the opposite was true, right? You end up playing Fortnite or Call of Duty because it's what you want to do, because you're not prioritizing stream growth and playing a game that will grow your stream. We take it so for granted, especially in IQ. We all know that you don't play the oversaturated games. So like, if you make your stream the priority and having a good stream and growing your stream the priority, then the game kind of like falls in line with that, and you can end up streaming and playing, all kinds of fun stuff that you would have never maybe touched even as a variety streamer, because you're too worried about, I don't want to be bored. I think I might be bored playing that game. There's most of us as streamers, like the nice thing about it is that you're doing something blind. You shouldn't know if you're going to be bored. Right? Mm-hmm. Like the value of a lot of a blind playthrough is that you don't know if you like the game or not, right?
Yeah.
Like
people want to see your reaction to it.
Yeah.
And you could also not like a game and that's still entertaining because people will be like, come watch this guy just
He's
be
salty as heck.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. If the stream is a priority, then how you feel about what you're doing is secondary, because you should like what you're doing, which is the stream, not the game. Play the stream. Don't play the game.
Play the stream. It's deep. That's real deep. That's meta.
Turn the stream on. The game is the game is so unimportant. It should really not be that important.
And also, the truly wonderful and beautiful thing about video games is there's no such thing as a unique video game. There are always ways to branch out slowly enough that people won't realize you're running away from a category.
Oh, yeah, the frog in the pot. Yeah, totally.
There are people like this, but I mean, generally speaking, nobody only likes one video game.
Yeah. And if you're a person that only really likes one video game, you may not be like a great viewer, and you may not be a great streamer. Like you're going to be kind of a boring person, and that's hard. It's going to be hard for a wide audience to connect with you when you hate everything and only like one thing. Like
you run the risk of limiting yourself if you're too one-dimensional, as it were, right? If you literally like nothing else except this one really specific thing, then you have to kind of be like then willing to admit that, like, hey, I'm only going to draw the people who also like this weirdly specific thing, and that's it, right?
Yeah, that's just have this giant
people who are like fascinated by somebody who likes this weirdly specific thing or whatever. But
and how do you make thousands of hours of content around like that, narrow thing? That's hard.
Mm-hmm. They're like pretty much every game is inspired by parts of other games, so like there are easy ways to branch out
except Tetris
or fast. Well, I mean, Tetris, okay, inspired might not be the right word, but like Tetris, you can go from Tetris to Puyo Puyo.
No, I only like Tetris, and I'm only going to
take that to the Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeons or whatever. It's a tile matching game.
No, Tetris is the only game. That's the only game that exists.
The only game.
Not streaming anything else. Ever.
Listen, if you think about it, Tetris is only like 4 steps removed from Bayonetta. And listen, it's
Bayonetta has falling blocks in the intro.
Oh man,
you're so right. Old school Candy Crush. Come on, let's be honest.
There's a reason that. Listen, I mean, we joke around, but like, there's a reason that things like Candy Crush and things like that, people the things that Twitch streamers scoff at. There's a reason those games are popular, right? There's a reason those games have how many downloads or whatever.
Because they're simple and they're mindless. So
Yeah.
it's almost a good thing for some people to maybe stream.
Yeah.
Maybe not Candy Crush, but
Listen,
if it gives you
I
something
streaming
to be
Candy Crush. Like, do we have the data on that?
And this stream was
people
brought to
stream
you
Candy
by
Crush?
Raid Shadow Legends. Just no, it wasn't. It wasn't. But
No, it's brought to you by World of Warships.
it's brought to you by IQ.
Whatever.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, if we want to use Bayonetta as an example, like,
Yeah, let's
you've
do that.
never played it,
What-
and you're
let's-
trying to
do
get
we
there.
have to?
Yeah. So like
talking
you
about
play you play any third-person action game, and that can lead you to Devil May Cry, which is about as close to Bayonetta as you can get.
Yeah, it's Boy
Like,
Bayonetta. Yeah.
You can go from God of War. Even the old God of
Yeah.
Wars, they're a lot like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta.
Yeah.
So you can, if you want to do it slowly, new God of War, old God of War, Devil May Cry, Bayonetta. Like it's
Bloodborne.
a very simple through line through that.
I mean, the only
And
difference between God of War and Devil May Cry is that one is edgier than the other, and I'll let you decide which it is.
But yeah, like but you can take other things like there's a lot of visual elements and like the dark fantasy and stuff in Bayonetta that you can see in something like Bloodborne, for example, that can take you over there or take you in a totally different direction because
I mean, you
just
can pretty much go from
different facets of
Bayonetta to
everything.
any platinum game, and there is a ton.
That's true. Because there's the gameplay link between those things
Yeah.
as well. So you can go
Well,
from
it's
Bayonetta
like
to
it's
Astral
like the way
Chain or
that
whatever.
like I was saying, like the category, right? Like FromSoft, bless their heart, knows how to do one thing really well, and they do it over and over. Platinum knows how to do one
Yeah.
thing really well, and they do it over and over.
So I want to, yeah.
There's content there. There are choices.
Yeah, thank
that
you
you can
everybody
do
for
that-
tuning in to the Bayonetta podcast.
Yeah.
Um,
I will never play Bayonetta just out of spite.
No,
FYI.
that is the worst attitude. That is the
Bayonetta.
worst attitude. You're gonna play Bayonetta
out
and
of
you're gonna
spite.
love it. That's what's gonna happen.
No, but that's totally true though. So like I think Hollow Knight is also a really interesting translational game.
Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
Because you can go from a lot of like platformers to Hollow Knight, and Hollow Knight has Soulsborne mechanics to it as well. So it's a transition out of Soulsborne stuff, and a lot of people really enjoy at least a portion of the first playthrough of that. Right? There's challenge runs associated with it. So I think that anything is 5 degrees from Kevin Bacon. Absolutely. Right.
It's like you like Castlevania. Do you like to play Castlevania? Do you like
Yeah.
to play Super Metroid? I have something for you. It's called Hollow Knight.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
I guarantee you'll enjoy at least a bit of it.
And then there's Dead
And it
Cells, and it just keeps
Yeah, it
going.
goes broader
right?
than that because you can
Absolutely.
you can go from Hollow Knight to Dead Cells, and that takes you down to roguelikes.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Hades,
can go from Hollow Knight to Celeste because
Yeah.
difficult platforming.
Absolutely.
or Super Meat Boy.
Or Super Meat Boy, yeah. Guacamelee is another one you can transition to because it's also a Metroidvania. Like there are a million different avenues you can take. You just need to be able to see those paths and those through lines, and then communicate that to people when you're ready to move on.
Communication is probably the key here. We need
And that's
that.
how you find yourself at 3 a.m. on a random stream watching Papers, Please, going like, I need this game in my life.
Yeah, if you're planning on moving people somewhere, your community, your viewers, don't shut up about what you're gonna do. Like, just keep telling everyone, hey, especially if you have a variety day, right? And you have an anchor game. If you're constantly streaming Darkest Dungeon 2 or Bloodborne or whatever throughout the week, and then you have one day for variety, every stream, like every 45 minutes, maybe even more, you need to be like, oh, by the way, on Friday, I'm going to be playing Bayonetta, and I've never played
No,
it.
never.
Okay? And
I should really expect you to say Mario Kart.
Okay,
but,
yeah.
like,
Don't shut up about it. Like you have to be your own advertiser for what's coming up, and if you're excited for it, you're more likely to draw those people in. Actually, I just want to watch you play Bayonetta even more now. I mean, it's like like all this is doing is reinforcing like that's going to be massive when that happens, right? And so
whenever you refuse Sonny to play Bayonetta, his desire to see you play Bayonetta.
Oh, do you know how many
goes.
times
Standard
Sonny's asked me to play
deviation,
Bayonetta? I'm like, no,
All of us, each of us.
it's never a good time.
Wait, am I the only one who's done it?
Oh wait, have you played Bayonetta?
Yeah, I have.
yeah,
I have
he
not.
listened to me.
I actually, it's been on my list for a long time, and I intend to get to it and part 2 when I'm ready to.
Closer to
when,
part 3 coming out would
yeah.
probably be smarter.
It was basically Devil
Exactly.
May Cry with the unspoken like boobies element to it that nobody actually wanted to vocalize, but we all knew. Like that's
It's an
that's part of
incredibly
the draw,
sexy
right? Like yeah, it's
So it should really be like Bayonetta with a B-A-E.
Bayonetta. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bayonetta. Yeah, it's a game, and you should play it. But
The point is,
There's suddenly like all these people playing Bayonetta.
you can very easily transition between games if you don't feel
communication is the key.
Yeah, communicate, and you can go pretty much anywhere you want.
You
Yeah.
are
You can
your
do that.
sorry to drop more wisdom on you, but you are your own best hype man
Oh yeah,
or woman. You are
Yeah.
your own best hype
you
person.
got to grab the
like,
chain, get the the clock on, and
the Flavor Flav clock, yeah, whatever it takes.
You got to
gotta-
wear the many hats. You got to wear all the hats. Yeah,
It's like but no, seriously though, you're your best advertisement for your stream.
Yeah.
And that also goes not just when you're on stream, but like when you're when you're interacting with the community in a broader sense. How you come off as a viewer in other streams is a direct reflection of how you are as a streamer usually as well. Like if you're chatty and you get to know everybody in all these other streams, those people are going to be a lot more likely to go, hey, I've seen that guy in X's stream. I'm going to go see what he's about. Like,
yeah,
and that's all within the confines of a single category, which again, why is like as you said, it might be actually fair to say that game lock doesn't even exist. That it's all just a mental thing.
yes, I think that's
There's no
true.
such thing as game lock. It's just
The
that's all
negative
in
form
your head.
of it. That's definitely. I would agree with that. That it doesn't really exist. It's a symptom of your mindset. Yeah.
We've done it. We figured it out.
End episode.
Well, I mean,
No.
it does have an effect, though.
We're
I mean, that's
getting
not to say it's
freaking existential in here tonight.
yeah.
Like, what is going on?
Twice.
It's not to say that it doesn't exist, but I mean, you need to be aware of it, and it's all a mental thing that you can get around.
Yeah.
As long as
It
you're aware
is,
of it and the
uh,
consequences, then you'll be fine.
Like everything else, you could either use it as a tool or you could fall victim to it, right? You can either fall victim to something or you could take something and make it work for you in a way that perhaps maybe you didn't think about when you initially started out, right?
Yeah. So I just want to put together this last statement, and then we'll wrap everything up. I knew I picked the 3 right guests and hosts to have on this podcast. This is evidence right here that this is the right crew.
Formula works.
Yeah. This is the right podcast for you if you're a streamer and trying to figure this stuff out. I hope, really, honestly, all we really are trying to do is get people out of their rut and to think about themselves and be more critical about how you approach everything. And honestly, don't let fear, this is my wrap up. Don't make decisions based on fear for your stream. Try to see anything that might be a negative, right? All you have to do is take it and transmute that thing. Take that and make it into something that's powerful. You don't have to be afraid of game lock when you can utilize being a category streamer to your advantage, to meet new people and grow your stream. And be, like we said, the real problem isn't that you're stuck in the game. The real problem is you're not a good salesman of the new stuff you want to do. So work on that. Develop that skill. Try to figure out how to, get people excited about something else that you are going to do on your stream, right? That's the skill you want to kind of work on. What you should be afraid of is not game lock, but being bad at being a streamer. That's what you should be afraid of, and that's the only fear that can help you make the right decisions. Try to make yourself a more well-rounded streamer and approach this stuff. Streaming is challenging. It's so challenging. You're going to have to deal with technical difficulties. You're going to have to deal with trolls. You're going to have to you're going to have to deal with decision making. It's just over and over and over again, like things to make this complicated. But it's also very worth doing. Why? People. You get to meet new people, you get to hang out with people, you get to enjoy trying new things and sharing new experiences with people. and make that your focus. And that'll help you throughout this whole journey. Because then you're not stuck going, I don't know if I'm going to play this game because I might be something I'm not really into. I've never really played Resident Evil.
Oh, that streamer voice. Wow.
That's exactly what my inner monologue sounds like. You've nailed it, sir.
I've never really played Resident Evil before. It's not really my game.
Plot twist, that's his real voice.
Yeah.
We know he's been hoodwinking us the whole time.
Yeah, so I want people to really feel like you got to approach this. You should approach streaming like it's going to be the most difficult thing that you've ever made work, or just go casual, full casual, and not care. Those are your options here, right?
Argue that like serious hobbyists can fit in the middle.
Yeah, but serious hobbyists always like buy the best stuff and make their stream easier, and like that's the attitude of like
and seen at the same time.
Yeah, serious hobbyists always have more gear than I do.
Well, the problem with a serious hobbyist, right? And this kind of ties in.
Oh God,
with
did I
Gamelog.
rabbit hole us? I'm sorry.
No. This is a perfect segue. It's like the thing with serious hobbyists is that despite the fact that they are treating it as a hobby, they are still treating it seriously. So like you get this weird element where you're right? But I'm saying you're always leaning more towards that, serious side. You're never leaning more towards the cat. I've never seen a serious hobbyist lean towards the hobby side. It's always been about
well, even that,
side.
like a hobby is usually something you're really passionate about. You're not usually meh about a hobby.
You're
like,
yeah,
oh,
right,
I do knitting, but I don't really enjoy it. Like,
God, I hate painting.
Yeah.
Typing a 3,000 page novel. Man, I hate writing. Like.
Yeah, I guess then really the two categories are more like, do you want to be a gamer who's live and not really care about quality or the stream, or do you want to be a streamer who's live?
You want to be a streamer.
Play the stream. Do you want to play the game, or do you want to play the stream? Those are your.
We've got meta again.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I mean, that ties back to that podcast that we did about the difference between streaming and being live.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what that boils down to.
True. The difference between people watching you play a video game and you putting on a show. Yeah. That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
The difference is being on camera versus being on camera. If that makes sense.
Got to put the emphasis in the
words. Emphasis, yeah.
Language.
How do
you write that? How do you write those two down?
More capitals.
More capitals. You capitalize being.
Italics. Bold. It's all bold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Different font. So. All right. So, do you have any final thoughts, Meats? And then we'll kind of go around. Yeah.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
So many thoughts. So many.
Yeah, you're not going to play Bayonetta, so I mean.
I will play Bayonetta. So my perspective on this is, if you kind of like what Sonny said, if you're in it to win it, right, and you find yourself your one-hit wonder, try to not be one-hit wonder number one, but realize that if that's what the people want, it should at least be part of your set list, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? If you were a performer, if you were an actor, if you were an entertainer, which, let's be honest, this is part of that space, there's something people like that you did. Be prepared for people to want that. Yep. And if you want to have that success and satisfy your community, it's okay to give that to them. Like I said, The Who still playing Bob O'Reilly. They hate that song. They're still going to play it because it's part of being an entertainer. And realizing that that's one of the sacrifices. If you treat this as a job, it's a job that you can love most of the time, but you're still sometimes going to do stuff and pretend or act to be more entertained than you are. And that shouldn't be the only thing, right? Because a true one-hit wonder tends to burn out after a while. But realize that maybe your sophomore album's not going to be as successful, and that's okay. I'm making music metaphors, but I think it tracks.
It works.
So realize that that's just one of the costs of success, is that you realize that people like hits and they want those hits.
Yep.
And just be okay with that. That's my thought.
Okay, Pickles.
Don't be afraid of game lock. Know what it is. Know what's going to happen if you try something else, if you do have a primary game. But it's not bad. It's actually really good to have an anchor, which is I think the other side of the coin to being game locked, right? Just have an anchor, something to come back to, something that's comfortable, something that people like, something that they can rely on. And then you can, if you want to experiment, you can mess around on the other days, but having an anchor is I think the solution to avoiding game lock, if that's something that you do not want to have happen. But again, know what it is and what the consequences are, as opposed to hearing the term and fleeing.
An anchor keeps your ship from from floating away. So.
True.
That's true. That's good. Is that your whole closing statement, Snazzy? Drop mic.
I was actually going to go with. I was going to continue Meats' musical reference. I was going to say
Oh, I love it. Yes.
People make fun of Smash Mouth, but all I got to do is stick my head in a room and yell somebody. Like.
No, it's all in our heads. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Shrek.
No, but my honest closing, Shrek. It always comes back to Shrek. No, my closing thought would be it's really kind of what everyone else has already kind of said a little bit, but yeah, plan ahead. I cannot stress this enough. Plan ahead, because with enough forethought and planning, you can avoid all the pitfalls of game lock while reaping all the benefits. And if you have an escape plan, if you have a little button you can pull that the ejection seat or whatever, you will never lock, quote unquote, yourself into a game
communicate. Communicate with people.
Oh my goodness, yes, please.
Yep. This is all key. Thank you for listening to Bayonetta Podcast episode 20.
Stop it.
Thank you for coming to our TED Talk.
Yeah,
Please like and subscribe.
No, my final thought real quick would be get to know yourself really well in this space. If it feels bad when you lose viewers, that tells you something about what your motivations. If you don't care how many viewers you have when you change games and you're just enjoying playing that other game now, that tells you about who you are and what your motivations are like. So try to balance that stuff out properly, because I've run into a lot of smaller streamers that they only want to play X and Y game, and then X game's working but Y game doesn't work, but they really want to play Y game, but the viewers aren't there, and that really bothers them. And it's like, okay, so you're telling me that your stream is more important than your game. Make that go that direction. That's where your power is. Move there. Figure out that. Don't get stuck in the negatives. Lean into the positive side of what you know about yourself in this situation. So, and yeah, if you're going to move your stream around from category to category and category, communicate. Don't do it don't expect everybody to know just because you told them once on stream. Keep telling them and tell them the next stream and keep telling them and then do it. So yeah, I think we did pretty well for not really having a topic this week. We need topics, so this is kind of a call. We're calling out to everybody. If you have something that you think you would like to have us talk about on this podcast, please tell us.
Even if it's a plea for help, unless you want musical references the whole time, because we could do that.
Even if we've talked about it before, let us know, and
Yeah.
maybe we can expand upon something.
True.
Something more specific.
No, you don't have to vote. No, this is not. Okay, everybody. So what game are we doing next?
He's got us there.
No, we want to know. We want to try and talk about the things that you guys maybe are struggling with on your stream. Things that you are, dealing with. Maybe you have, I don't know, toxic community member, or maybe you have whatever it is, something you're struggling with as a streamer, or maybe you have something that's working really well and you want us to talk about that and maybe why.
Yeah.
Try to dig into why that's working.
Yeah, get on the Discord. There's that little suggestions.
Yeah, if you're an IQ
channel,
member,
throw
you
that
can
in
drop
there.
it.
Yeah,
Also, you could just
and why wouldn't you be? I mean,
tweet at any one of us. Follow
Oh, yeah,
us all on
please.
Twitter. Follow
Please,
the IQ Twitter.
I need more friends on Twitter.
Yeah, Snazzy
Please.
needs you to follow him on Twitter. So check out all these streams. If you like anything that we're saying here and you want to come talk to us on our live streams, we all stream. So just pop in to our channel names or in the camera here. We got Eat Your Meats, Highly Pickled, Snazzy Bastard, and the Sunny Machine. We would all love to have you guys come in and say hi if you want to talk about stuff. I'm sure we could try to make that work.
Heck
So.
yeah.
Oh, we don't have a shout out.
Nah, there's no shout out. I'll build it. I'll build it later. I'll build it later. Yeah. So, thank you everybody for hanging out. Appreciate everybody in chat. And if you guys have anything, please message us. Talk to us. Shout out, Panda. Perfect. Thank you everybody. We will see you in the next episode next Wednesday.
Somebody once.
Oh man. Perfect.